You ever wonder how millionaires seem to make $10,000 in a week while it feels like it takes you forever just to save that much? Yeah, it can really feel like the whole system is rigged against you from the start. But here's the thing, it's not a conspiracy, it's just math. Powerful and kind of counterintuitive math. So let's break down exactly how it all works. So, this is the big paradox we're going to tackle. Why does building your very first $100,000 feel like you're pushing a giant boulder uphill in the mud? But then every 100,000 after that just seems to show up faster and faster. I mean, it's the same amount of money, right? But the time and the effort feel worlds apart. If you've ever looked at your investment account and just thought, I'm doing everything right, but this needle is barely moving, you are not alone. That feeling is the number one reason people just give up on investing. But the truth is, you're not getting nowhere. You're just in a phase where the rules of time and money are, well, a little different, but they're about to change in your favor. Okay, so this brings us to the first big hurdle, and it's a mental one. I like to call it the linear wealth trap. It's this way of thinking that feels perfectly logical, but it is completely 100% wrong. And honestly, it's devastating for your motivation. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? 100 grand is 10% of a million, so you figure you're 10% of the way there. But after years of saving, being only 10% done feels awful, especially in our world of instant everything. It makes you feel like the game is broken. But the game isn't broken. Wealth just doesn't work that way. So here's the absolute key. We're all taught to think in straight lines. A leads to B leads to C. But the reality of investing, the truth, is that it's a snowball. It starts out tiny, almost pathetic, as it rolls down a hill. But then it picks up speed, gets bigger, and eventually becomes this unstoppable force. So if it's not a straight line, what is it? Well, that brings us to what I call the painful tortoise phase. This is where most people are right now, and it's exactly where most people decide to quit. The slog, my friends, is real. It's brutal. But it is absolutely necessary. Let's put some real numbers to this slog, okay? If you invest $500 a month, and let's assume a pretty standard 7% return, it's going to take you about 7 years and 9 months to hit your first $100,000. That's almost 8 years. Think about that. 8 years is a long, long time to stay motivated when it feels like nothing is happening. And this is why it feels so hard, because during those first 8 years, you are doing almost all of the heavy lifting. Look at this. Out of that first 100 grand, nearly half of it, about $46,000, came directly out of your pocket from your hard work. Your money is working, for sure, but your savings are still the hero of the story. So we need to reframe this. Hitting that first 100K isn't just a small milestone on some impossibly long road. No way. It's the entire foundation. It's the launch pad. You've just spent years building an incredible engine, and I'm telling you, you have just successfully finished the single hardest part of this entire journey. Okay, you did the hard part. You built the foundation. Now, this is where everything changes. We're officially entering the momentum shift, and we're about to reveal this simple little secret behind all of this acceleration. And it's called the Rule of 72. This is the key to the whole thing. The Rule of 72 is just a quick mental shortcut that tells you how long it'll take for your money to double all by itself. It's so simple. You just take the number 72 and you divide it by your expected annual return. That's it. The answer is the number of years it'll take to double your money. And here's what that actually looks like. If you're getting a 5% return, your money is going to double roughly every 14 years. At 7%, it's about every 10 years. And if you're lucky enough to get a 10% return, you are doubling your entire nest egg every 7 years. That's the engine you just spent all that time building. So now watch what happens. It took you almost 8 years to grind out that first 100,000. But the second 100,000, that only takes 5 more years. Then you double to 400K in the next 5, and then to 800K in the 5 after that. You see? The time it takes to add huge chunks of wealth shrinks dramatically. The snowball is getting bigger, and it is rolling so much faster. And this all leads us to the final, and honestly, the most exciting phase, the compounding explosion. This is the point where the math just becomes mind-bending, and your money officially starts to work way, way harder than you do. Check this out. By the time your portfolio hits around $650,000, something incredible happens. Assuming that same 7 or 8% return, your investments are now generating about $52,000 a year on their own. That's a full-time salary. Your money is now earning more than the average person makes by going to work for 2,000 hours a year. So let's talk about the big goal. Reaching your first $1 million at $500 a month? Yeah, it's going to take some time, about 29 years. And I know that can sound like a lifetime, but trust me, that is not the most important number here. This is. It took you 29 years to build that first million, but your second million, that only takes about 7 years. Just let that sink in for a second. The second million arrives in less than a quarter of the time it took to get the first one. That is the power of the explosion. At this point, your contributions barely even matter. The machine is just running itself. Okay, so let's bring this all home and talk about the elephant in the room. We've proven the start is the hardest part. But the biggest objection is always, but I don't have 29 years to wait around. So let's reframe that whole idea. First of all, time is going to pass no matter what. You can arrive at year 29 with nothing, or you can arrive with $1 million. The clock ticks either way. Second, you don't have to wait for the million to feel the freedom. Remember that $650,000 tipping point? That's what we call walkaway money. That's the power to quit a job you hate or to start that business you've been dreaming of long before you officially retire. And really, that leaves us with this final thought. If you're in those first 7 years right now and you feel like you're going nowhere, you're not. You are building the engine. You're in the tortoise phase, and you are mathematically guaranteed to hit that acceleration point, but only if you keep going. It all comes down to this. The person who understands this math builds wealth. The person who demands instant results, well, they stay broke.